we spend all this money on entities, people, but we're not spending nearly enough money to make sure things like libraries exist. Parkland doesn't have a library. We talked about at the, but police officers, even the lowest paid ones, get paid quadruple the amount of the average public health worker. So the priority is wherever you put the money. And if you're voting to give police money, you're voting that you don't care about us. Because we've been begging. The health director just talked about, he begged for the health department. Public entities that are pleading, that are asking specific council members for money for their departments that have proven success. But then we have a department that doesn't even solve half of the crimes, that gets tossed money every year, all the time. People are bending over backwards to give them money, and they don't even have the same track record as me, a single mom in the West End. And I'm tired of it. And I know that some of y'all yes votes are not gonna change to no, and some no votes might change yes, but look at what you really care about. Don't say that you care about Black lives. Do not keep telling me you care about the West End when you can't even get our library back open. And this isn't to a specific council member. It's not. It's to all of us. We gotta stand up, we gotta do more. This is ridiculous. At any other job, the police would have been fired. If I was at work as a lobbyist and someone died on my watch, I get in trouble if I lose a voter registration card. So we gotta hold police to the same standards as we do every other field, if not a higher standard, because they have weapons. And I not only have a little bit more time left, but the reason this is so important is because what I care about, education, health, food justice, all this, police are taking that money away. You have to recognize that. And I'm really sick of it. I was born and raised in Louisville. I'm gonna continue to be a homeowner in Louisville, and I expect y'all to do a lot better.
Mary Downing. Mary Downing. Is there a Mary Downing? Okay, thank you.
I'm here to just talk about TARP 3. No one can explain to me why TARP 3 is not under TARP. Why does TARP give a contractor $118 million to run the bus when they could use that money in-house to improve the service? I am a rider of TARP 3, and I'm speaking for all the riders. Last month, I was at my doctor's office. My visit with my doctor was over at 11:30. We can use will call for doctor visits. I called my will call in, say 11:45 a.m. I wasn't picked up till 4 p.m. You know, I mean, they getting $118 million, and this is the kind of service we're getting. I worked all my life. I'm disabled. I shouldn't be treated like a second-class citizen. but that's how I feel. Now, not only did they picked me up an hour late at an appointment. I couldn't see my doctor because I was too late. They had to reschedule my appointment. I lost my primary doctor that I had been seeing for several years because I couldn't get on her schedule. So they had to give me another doctor. We're being left. I know you heard about the man that was left at the Get Twin the next day. I am tired of losing. They lose your reservation. I go to this center 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday. I go to the same address. I have to be there at the same time. I called on a Friday. They said, we don't have a reservation for you. Well, I said, well, wait a minute. You had my Monday reservation, my Wednesday reservation. You had to have my Friday reservation because I would have made reservations for all 3 days. I go there every week. This is the kind of service we're getting from TARC 3. Please tell me why TARC is giving them $118 million to treat us this way. Now, we use TARC 3. We need the service because we have to get to the grocery. We have to get to our doctor appointments. We can only use will call for doctor appointments. And I can understand that. In the contract, will call is supposed to last 90 minutes, not 4 or 5 hours. You shouldn't have to waste a whole day at your doctor's office because someone don't know how to run public transportation. City Council, I want to tell you this. Louisville gets good write-ups for its hotel, its convention, but it says public transportation sucks. So y'all need to do something about TARC, and especially TARC 3. Why can't
Ms.
they
Downing, Ms. Downing?
Yes.
Your time has expired.
Thank you. Kara Toby?
Well, I'll go by the rules, but you need to do something about TARC 3.
Kara Toby?
Okay. Hello, my name is Kara Toby. I'm a resident of District 16 and a member of the 490 Project. But some of you may have known that already. I'm here today to demand that you vote no and send the FOP contract back for negotiations. Actually, we are here today to demand that you vote no. Over the past year, we've done everything the system allows us to do to try to get you to listen and to vote against these contracts. We started by speaking or attempting to speak with the mayor. He blew us off, and you all provided essentially no support. We sent you all countless emails explaining why you need to vote no. We called your offices and left voicemails. We even spoke with many of you all individually in one-on-one meetings. Many said that there were provisions that you disagreed with, such as Article 17, Section 2, the suspension memo. Those provisions are still in the contract. When public hearings were scheduled, with sometimes less than 24 hours notice, we showed up, and we showed up in numbers. Every single person who spoke at those hearings, outside of maybe 2, asked you to vote no. Some of those people are here today. We shared personal stories, we shared data, we shared articles from well-respected law journals, we compiled and shared analysis of the contract compared to state law and compared to other cities nearby. You had questions, we answered them for you. But you aren't listening, at least not to us. What will it take for you to act on what the community is asking you for? Do you think that LMPD harassing, caging, and murdering Black and brown people is a joke? are these communities, your neighbors, just a joke to you? Well, the only joke I see is this farce of an accountability process. And unlike y'all, we're paying attention. And we know how you've acted this past year, and we'll remember your votes tonight. We'll remember them when we're at the ballot box. We'll remember them when the corrections CBA comes to you early next year. And you better believe that we will remember when the FOP and the city go back for negotiations. Your time in office is limited. We aren't going anywhere. When y'all said you wanted to hold LMPD accountable, what did you think that meant? That a wag of the finger and a stern word when you bring the mayor and the chief up to these exact chambers? You have two tools at your disposal. One is the budget, and we're paying attention to that as well. The other is the vote that you're taking tonight on this contract. Are you going to use the tool that you have in front of you, or are you going to whine about the mayor some more on Twitter when you have the power to take a stand now? Vote no.
Thank you. Lindsay Wallace. Lindsay Wallace.
Earlier this year, 2 of my sons were assaulted by a teenager over a basketball game. They were 11 and 13 at the time, and through sobs and screams, they recounted the beating and demanded I call the police. I knew from personal experience and historical data that the police would not increase our sense of safety or provide any justice, but in the end, I let my sons make the decision. The police came, they flatly told us nothing would happen, and the most they could do would be to drive through the alley, which they did. The group of teens dispersed upon seeing their cars. The end. Except that's not the end. The police did not keep my kids safe the next time they walked down the street. They cannot get to the root of this young person's rage, and if the 15-year-old who assaulted my sons decides to retaliate, the police will not protect us. Because police do not prevent harm. They show up after it has occurred, and in this and countless situations with no meaningful service or protection. The millions of dollars this city spends on policing each year have nothing to offer us. Not only nothing to offer, but LMPD budget increases over the last decade have led only to rampant sexual abuse, record-breaking homicide rates, an abysmal 35% clearance rate, and a federal investigation from the Department of Justice. If policing and caging people worked, it would have worked by now. If police prevented crime, there wouldn't be any crime. They have been the most overfunded, under-delivering department in this city for decades. We've been living under police reform for years, and it is not working. You're throwing our money into a systemic cesspool instead of addressing the root causes of harm. You continue to invest 2 times the amount of taxpayer dollars into police and corrections instead of safe housing, meaningful employment, access to nutritional food, equitable education, mental health care, and substance abuse support, all proven methods of preventing harm. You seem determined to repeat the same failed public safety policies of our past. It is reprehensible to give the police department that killed Breonna Taylor a 15% raise in exchange for nothing that will prevent officer-involved shootings and the terrorization of Black, brown, and economically exploited communities from continuing. Everyone in this city should be appalled by the willful dismissal of evidence-based best practices by the mayor and by all of you regarding the dangerous provisions that remain in this contract and the ways to make it less harmful. A yes vote for this contract is a vote for violence, not against it. If you continue to give LMPD more money, people will be harmed and people will die. Louisville deserves so much better, and while this council may not deliver it, future councils will. Your terms will come to an end, but we're not going anywhere until everyone in Louisville is safe and has what they need to thrive.
Thank you. Nancy Cavalcante.
I'm Nancy Cavalcante. I live in District 26. Did you know that the United Nations has guidelines, and this is what they say, that any effective police accountability system must increase civilian control over the police, investigate cases of misconduct, and act swiftly to address them, and reduce corruption. You continue to say you're going to hold LMPD accountable. I repeat, going to. I ask you today, when and how will this happen? We're watching and waiting, and we continue to watch and to wait. Frankly, we're tired of not being heard. Civilians have faithfully given you a defection model that you are preparing to fragment and underfund while you continue to increase funding for a failed police department. Listen to the concerns posed by Councilwoman George. Vote no to R16121 and send this contract back to committee to be reviewed. While we are waiting for you to take action, we continue to lift the names of those who've been killed by LMPD and the effective, the ineffective policing and accountability systems in this city that are supported by this FOP contract that you are preparing to approve. Some of these names are Adrian Reynolds, David McAtee, Shelby Gazaway, Ishmael Gobe, Damanje Jordan, Gina McMillan, Dwantis Mitchell, Tracy Oglesby Wade, James Taylor, Isaac Jackson, Darnell Wicker, Tyler DeTillo, Russell Bowman, Corey Boykin, William Mattingly, Justin Riggs, Jamie Frey, Dustin South, Carlos Runyon, Benjamin Kennedy, Dominique Hardiman, Anthony French Sr., Ding Mignon, Jesse Springfield, Norman Smith, and Alexander Simpson. I ask you now, with my few seconds remain, to be in silence with me and remember these people and their families. And in closing, I remind you that we continue to ask you to vote no and to ask for justice and to say her name, Breonna Taylor.
Thank you. Margaret Stewart.
My face may look familiar. I've addressed this council meeting several times before about the crisis of the climate and renewable energy. Why do I keep coming back? I come because I care too much not to come. I love this dear earth. I love my children and their children. I love the amazing creatures we share the earth with. So I come because I love. And I come because I fear. For years, I've read all I can about climate change. I've learned about feedback loops, albedo effects, methane hydrates, learned enough to fear for the future of the earth, learned enough to know even a small increase in the global temperature leads to a big increase in extreme weather events. Personally, I'm tired of water in my basement from heavy rains. I constantly worry my trees will be broken and roofing ripped off by the next big storm. So far, I've been lucky, much, much luckier than those whose homes and lives were turned inside out and upside down by last week's terrible tornado. But none among us has any guarantee we will be spared the next time. And there will be a next time. So love and fear compel me to do all I can to save the climate. But I have a big problem. When I heat my home, I burn gas. When I turn on lights and appliances, I burn coal. I hate burning fossil fuels, yet I burn them because my roof isn't suitable for solar and I can't afford geothermal. I strive to be efficient, but I really want to know that the energy I use derives from renewables. I really want to plug in to the sun. Unfortunately, LGE's Solar Share program is not a good deal for the customer, so I won't run on sun until Louisville has a utility-scale solar installation to provide the bulk of our energy. Therefore, I implore you, please, do everything you can as quickly as you can to help me and thousands of others like me unplug from fossil fuels and plug in to the sun. The sun's energy is free. The sun's energy is endless. All we have to do is catch it. Together, let's figure out the best ways to do this right here in River City right now.
Thank you. Melinda McCullough, I'm sorry, Lynn Dodd. Lynn Dodd.
Yes, I'm right here. Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we do. You can go ahead.
Okay. I'm here to talk about the Tark 3 situation. I've been riding Tark 3 for 30 years. I take your Tark 3 to work and from home 4 days a week. My trouble with Tark is consistency. When Tark is late, I call, where's my ride? Although, when then I've been told numerous times I don't have a ride. Although I do have subscription ride, which is where I had the same time pickup and return every day without calling. But some mornings I can't go to work and then I don't get paid. Some mornings I'm at least 2 hours late and I don't get paid for the times I don't show up or the times I show up 2 hours late. That's because they tell me that I don't have a ride. So I would like to get up knowing that she'll be able to show up for work. I would like to get up knowing my ride will be here and that I'm not stressed and wondering if they will not come. I mean, what if you're late or that you don't get to work? How's your company going to accept things? Yeah, Tark feels like, it's all right for us. Well, that's not fair. So how many of your companies would even put up with this? My pickup time is from 8:45, and my work starts at 10. And the drive is about 30 to 40 minutes, so I'm not talking about being 15 minutes late. I'm talking about being an hour or two late for work. Or not even them not even showing up to pick you up. So that's a big problem problem with Chart 3. And also, you were at work. We work with people that have disabilities. Well, we're not even able, well, I mean, because Chart's doing such a bad job, you know, we don't feel like, you know, we should really encourage our clients or our participants to use the Chart 3 system. So I actually am not sure what the therapists do about that, because we used to be able to say, oh, use Chart 3, you know, it'll come to your door, pick you up, you'll get to where you're going on time. But that's not the case anymore. Well, I'm off my soapbox now, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Melinda Mccullough?
Yes, I'm here.
One moment. You can go ahead, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of Metro Council. My name is Melinda Mccullough. I'm a recent graduate of Sullivan University with my degree in business administration. I also have multiple sclerosis, and I do use paratransit for my transportation. My concern, along with others, is reliability. Waiting long hours is a huge concern from like previously scheduled rides, whether it's hot or cold. Our health also is a concern. Unsafe locations, being left there late. I can give you an example. Earlier this summer, I was left waiting for 5 hours for a scheduled ride, only to be told by the dispatch that several drivers had called off earlier that day. It did take them from 2:30 to almost 8 o'clock to pick me up. My concern was a health condition because I do have multiple sclerosis. I know this is not only my concern, but my fellow paratransit riders as well. We know there are major challenges regarding ride dependability and whether one can be picked up in a timely manner, but we are asking you, Metro Council, to please look into this situation because this is an urgent matter for our community and the livelihood of many Louisville residents. I also will hopefully be getting a job soon as a graduate, and my concern is making sure that I can get there in a timely manner, to make sure that I can also get picked up in a timely manner, not to be left in a situation that may not be good for, you know, the surroundings and so forth. So we're asking you, you know, to look at our situation and to realize that these accommodations, you know, are very important for us. But under the ADA Title Number 2, paratransit services must be comparable to the city's fixed bus system regarding routes and availability. And we are asking Metro members if they would please look into this for our livelihood so that we can also have a good part of our lives making sure that we can get what we need as far as transportation and getting to jobs and getting to our doctor's appointments in a timely manner like everyone else. So we do thank you for your time.
Thank you. Barbara Berman? Barbara Berman?
I'm here.
You can go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Berman, and I live at 2127 Woodford Place, 40205. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Louisville's Property Maintenance Code, Exterior Property Areas, Chapter 156.052, the first part of Section D, titled Weeds, is vague and confusing. Residents don't understand it. Native plant advocates don't understand it, and we spend too much time fighting for our right to grow native plants that feed our bees, butterflies, and birds, and provide so much more. I'd like to make 9 brief points. Native plants are needed to feed our pollinators, the native bees, butterflies, and birds. They don't require as much watering during droughts and heat waves as turf grass and most non-native perennials. 3, In contrast to traditional turf grasses, native plants don't require herbicides or pesticides. 4. Native plant gardens tend to be less maintenance and require less watering while reducing soil erosion and increasing our water quality. 5. They also require less mowing and blowing, which reduces our air and noise pollution and climate-changing greenhouse gases. 6. Scientists are alarmed at the rapid decline of bees, butterflies, and birds in our lifetime. We simply cannot ignore this problem, and native plants are essential in the food chains. 7. As such, they are vital to the living systems that support human life. 8. For example, the monarch butterfly is in serious decline, largely because of the scarcity of milkweed, which is the only plant that monarch caterpillars can eat. No milkweed, no monarchs. It's that simple. This is only one of many examples. 9. This is not about allowing people to abandon caring for their yards. In conclusion, when it comes to climate, pollinators, water, and air quality, will Louisville be part of the problem or part of the solution? Here's our chance to be a good global citizen while honoring the wishes of our own citizens to grow native plants. I hope that each of the council members will allow native plant advocates to meet with you to explain this in more detail. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. President James, that concludes the addresses to council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we have approval of council minutes for the regular meeting of December 2nd, 2021. Are there any corrections or deletions?
Motion to accept?
Motion by Councilman Triplett, second by Councilman Piagentini. The minutes are properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. These minutes are approved as written. Next, we have approval of the following committee minutes. Regular Committee of the Whole, December 2nd, 2021. Special Labor and Economic Development Committee, December 6th, 2021. Regular Planning and Zoning Committee, December 7th, 2021. Regular Labor and Economic Development, December 7th, 2021. Regular Public Works Committee, December 7th, 2021. Regular Government Oversight and Audit Committee, December 7th, 2021. Regular Public Safety Committee, December the 8th, 2021. Regular Appropriations Committee, December the 8th, 2021. Regular Parks and Sustainability Committee, December 9th, 2021. Regular Committee on Equity and Inclusion, December 9th, 2021. Regular Budget Committee, December 9th, 2021. Special Public Safety Committee, December 15th, 2021. Are there any corrections and or deletions?
Motion to accept?
Motion by Councilman Triplett, second by Councilman Peden. Minutes been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. These minutes are approved as written. Our next order of business is the consent calendar. The consent calendar comprises items number 19 through 42. Are there any additions or deletions? Madam Clerk, a second reading of these items, please.
The following legislation was forwarded from the Appropriations Committee. Item 19, an ordinance appropriating $10,000 from District 25 Neighborhood Development Funds to the Louisville Metro Police Department to assist with overtime hours for the 3rd Division to patrol streets in District 25 to prevent crime and provide outreach. Item 20, an ordinance appropriating $10,000 from District 8 Neighborhood Development Funds through the Office of Management and Budget to Friends of Beechwood Park to fund stone entrance steps. Item 21, an ordinance appropriating $10,000 from District 8 Neighborhood Development Funds through the Office of Management and Budget to Highlands Community Ministries to fund its food pantry and low-income senior lunch program staff wages. The following legislation was forwarded from the Budget Committee. Item 22, an ordinance amending several sections of the Chapter 110 of the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Code of Ordinances, LMCO, regarding occupational license taxes. Item 23, an ordinance amending ordinance number 088, Series 2021, relating to the fiscal year 2021-2022 capital budget for the Louisville Jefferson County Metro government by appropriating $20 million to facilities and fleet management to fund the purchase and renovation of a property located at 601 West Chestnut Street. Item 24, a resolution of official intent of the Louisville Jefferson County Metro government to finance the acquisition, construction, renovation, and improvement of a municipal building for various metro agencies, including the Louisville Metro Police Department, from the proceeds of one or more proposed issue of general obligation bonds and general obligation notes. Item 25, a resolution authorizing the mayor to make application for Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Response, CDBG-CV, program funds to rehabilitate the buildings located at 631 South 28th Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40211, to be used for an adult day center for disabled young adults and will be owned and operated by ElderServe, Inc. Item 26, a resolution approving the Jefferson County Clerk's 2022 budget. Item 27, a resolution approving the Jefferson County Sheriff's 2022 budget. The following legislation was forwarded from the Government Oversight and Audit Committee. Item 28, the appointment of Greg Willett to the Commission for Persons with Disabilities. Term expires December the 12th, 2025. Item 29, the appointment of Paul Henson to the Louisville Metro Tree Advisory Committee. Term expires November the 29th, 2024. Item 30, the reappointment of Adam Gallagher to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. Term expires December 31st, 2024. Item 31, the reappointment of Kimberly Rice Good to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. Term expires December 31st, 2024. Item 32, the reappointment of Amanda Fuller to the Extension Board. Term expires December 31st, 2024. Item 33, the appointment of Christopher Schrimser to the Kentuckiana Works Greater Louisville Workforce Development Board. Term expires June the 30th, 2022. Item 34, the appointment of Patricia Williams to the Kentuckiana Works Greater Louisville Workforce Development Board. Term expires September the 10th, 2024. Item 35, the reappointment of Caitlin Blair to the Kentuckiana Works Greater Louisville Workforce Development Board. Term expires December the 13th, 2024. The following legislation was forwarded from the Labor and Economic Development Committee. Item 36, a resolution pursuant to the Capital and Operating Budget Ordinance is approving the appropriation to fund the following non-competitively negotiated sole source contract for Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness, LMPHW, concerning COVID testing equipment. Life Technologies Corporation, $63,575. Item 37, a resolution pursuant to the Capital and Operating Budget Ordinance is approving the appropriation to fund the following professional service contract for the Louisville Zoo concerning an animatronic insect display. Dino Don, Inc., $225,000. The following legislation was forwarded from the Parks and Sustainability Committee. Item 38, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept a donation of $100,000 from the Nature Conservancy for the implementation of consultant-led conceptual planning and public input related to the Mill Creek 1,000-acre park to be administered by the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 39, a resolution approving the use of an undeveloped portion of Bobby Nichols Golf Course owned by Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government located at 4301 East Pages Lanes by Cotton Sports LLC. The following legislation was forwarded from the Planning and Zoning Committee. Item 40, an ordinance relating to the decision of the Development Review Committee of the Planning Commission to approve the revised district development plan proposed in case number 21 DDP 0048. The following legislation was forwarded from the Public Safety Committee. Item 41, a resolution pursuant to the Capital and Operating Budget Ordinances approving the appropriation to fund the following non-competitively negotiated professional service contract for the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods concerning training and technical assistance to help alleviate violence in Metro Louisville, Cure Violence Global, $200,000. The following legislation was forwarded from the Public Works Committee. Item 42, an ordinance approving the 32nd Supplemental Sewer and Drainage System Revenue Bond resolution adopted by the Board of the Louisville and Jefferson County Metropolitan Sewer District, authorizing the issuance of the district's sewer and drainage system revenue bond series 2022A. Read in full.
Thank you. And may I have a motion and a second
Motion.
for
Move approval, Peden.
motion by Councilman Piagentini, second by Councilman Peden. The consent calendar has been properly moved and seconded, requiring a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Green. Councilmember Shanklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Dorsey.
Yes.
Councilmember Arthur.
Yes.
Councilmember Purvis.
Yes.
President James.
Yes.
Councilmember McCraney.
Yes.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander.
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
Councilmember Kramer.
Yes.
Councilmember Blackwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Fox.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Piagentini.
Yes.
Councilmember Benson. Councilmember George,
Yes.
Councilmember Engel,
Yes.
Councilmember Peden,
Yes.
Councilmember Flood,
Yes.
Councilmember Holton Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Ackerson, Mr. President, you have 23 yes votes.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes. Colleagues, pursuant to Rule 7.0 subsection B, legislation may be passed at the same meeting it is introduced if it is an administrative function of the council. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 43.
A resolution approving the appropriation of fund and annual contract with HR Alliance for workplace investigation services not to exceed $20,000. Read in full.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second for
Motion to
approval?
move. Second.
Motion by Councilman Peden, second by Councilman Piagentini. The resolution is before us. Councilman Winkler, could you speak to this, please?
I'm sorry, President James, I cannot.
Okay. Can you take my place for a moment?
That I can do.
Madam Clerk, could you let the record reflect that Councilman Winkler has the chair?
Yes, sir.
President James?
Thank you. The purpose for this legislation is every year, annually, we have to renew the contract that allows for workplace sexual harassment reporting and ethics reporting, and that is the contract that you see before you. And so we needed to get it in before the next year starts, and that's the purpose for this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I believe this is an item, it's a resolution, so I believe it allows for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and I will give the chair back to President James.
Thank you, Councilman Winkler. Madam Clerk, let the record reflect that I'm back in the chair.
Yes, sir. So noted.
Our next item of business is old business. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I'm really glad that you all are here because you have come to look at government and observe government. And I think that the reason you're here is because of the next item up, which is the FOP contract. And so what I want to say to you is that there's a certain decorum that takes place in these chambers. And I appreciate you being here. However, our meeting will not be interrupted, and we will move forward with the meeting. I'm going to go through this process. I'm going to advise you now, because I don't want to have any surprises, that I'll provide a warning if you get out of line, if it's the whistling, if it's the snapping of the fingers, the flicking of your fingers on the paper. All of those things will provoke a warning. I'm going to give a couple of those. And if you cannot maintain the decorum of this room, you'll be removed from this room. I want you to be able to be here. So I'm just providing you with information. If you are unable to do that, then I will clear the chambers. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 44.
A resolution ratifying and approving a collective bargaining agreement through June the 30th, 2023, relating to the wages, benefits, and other terms and conditions of employment between Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government and the River City Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 614, police officers and sergeants.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second, please?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Peden, second by Councilman Piagentini. The resolution is before us. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. President. This police contract before us is much like the lieutenants and above contract that passed a couple of weeks ago. There was a change in the pay, and due to that change, I did reinitiate the process of starting again with the public hearing so that we could hear the public's input yet again on this topic. That period did allow us to dig back into some of the details of the contract, get further clarification. There was quite a bit of discussion. And I would say after those discussions, many may not agree with the contract on both sides. But I will say that there have been positive strides. We have discussed in a lot of entirety, or excuse me, not exhaustively, but in almost to its entirety, the early warning system. The process of informal complaints moving from 90 days to now 2 years, how suspensions work both paid and unpaid, the chief's ability to terminate based on egregious events, compliance with the Hilliard-Hines report, compliance with previous DOJ consent decrees, as well as the Breonna Taylor settlement. There are some indirect contract concerns that have been brought up in regard to diversity that are very valuable. I do look forward to passing additional legislation that can support, some of the concerns that I do and my community does have with this contract. But overall, it is progress in the right direction. Mr. President, I thank you for your time, and I do know there may be others that have some comments. But overall, I would say this is a stride forward for the city of Louisville. It's not exactly what I would want, and there are still concerns, but it is a positive step forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. President. And before I get into some of my concerns about the contract, I first just want to say and express my most sincere appreciation for the officers in my district who have helped with some of the issues on Bardstown Road. And so I want to be clear that when I'm speaking about my concerns about the contract and my concerns around transparency and accountability, that I very much appreciate the effort of those officers and the work that they have done and the way that they have been helpful in the many challenges that we have faced in my district. My concerns tonight are around transparency. Many of you know that I used to be an open records attorney before I ran for office. And transparency is something that we have talked a lot about in the past months, but I'm worried that this contract does not go as far as it could to promote that goal. We have a moment right now when we could require that all complaints be kept and entered into an early warning system like Lexington did in its contract. And this contract does not do that. Under this contract, informal complaints can be destroyed after 2 years, and that is because the destruction policy is tied to the state records retention schedule, which allows destruction after that period of time. By tying destruction to the record retention policy at the state, we're giving away our local ability to control the process, and instead we're letting a state administrative regulation determine how long we keep these types of complaints and important public records. Some might say that that's okay, that informal complaints are less important. That's not true. The Supreme Court was very clear in 1983 that any complaint that spawns an investigation should be treated the same way under open records law. Although this contract uses words like formal and informal, a complaint is a complaint as far as the law is concerned. Whatever process someone goes through to file it should not matter. The law is clear. The public has a right to see these complaints and the investigations they lead to. A little over 6 months ago, the Supreme Court reiterated that police investigation files are public records subject to the Open Records Act and that the public has a right to see them. And this isn't about judging the conduct of any particular police officers. It's about ensuring that the public has the ability to understand how decisions are made, investigations are carried out, and conclusions are reached. It's about letting the public see how government is working and making up their own minds about the job we are doing with their tax dollars. That's how we build trust. There is a lot to support in this contract and a lot of progress, but I'm a no vote tonight. Transparency is important, and I'm not willing to cede any ability to move that forward to a state agency that this body has no control over. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Hollander.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just respond briefly to the comments about the 2-year issue. What we had in the contract that I opposed for our officers in the past, but was passed by this council, allowed the destruction of records. It actually mandated the destruction of the records that Councilwoman Armstrong has talked about at 90 days. That has been changed in this contract, and it says that These records that Councilwoman Armstrong just talked about will be handled in accordance with Louisville's record retention policy. That policy is not set by the state. That policy is set by Louisville Metro and can be approved by the Department of Libraries and Archives. I am very confident that if Louisville decides that we will change the record retention policy to make it much longer than 2 years, the Department of Libraries and Archives will say yes. And for that reason, I think this is an issue that really needs to be explained, because I think when the comments are made that we are mandating the destruction of records after 2 years, I do not believe that's true. For that reason, I'll be voting yes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a resolution allowing for a voice vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss the mic? Councilwoman George.
Thank you, President. On the front end, I want to say that as council members, it is always our job to consider the voices that aren't being heard and aren't being factored into decision making. And this is true. And it's true that for far too long, the voices in this room have not always been heard. But it's also true that many of us hear from residents every day with concerns about safety that impact the quality of their life every day. I do. I also hear from officers who were compelled to join the department and who work hard but describe conditions with staffing that make quality and accountability nearly impossible within the current structure of the system. It can also, two things can be true. It can also be true that the comments that have been made tonight, for instance by Ms. Martin, are true. We should be upstreaming services. We should be funding parks. We should be funding libraries. We should be thinking about pools and health centers. And it can also be true that if we want a professionalized police department that offers quality services to the things that we've heard about in the way of community policing, that we have to be willing to pay competitive wages and benefits to retain and recruit.
This is the first warning.
Finally, I want to say that for many of us, voting the way that you don't want us to vote doesn't mean we're not listening. Many of us made commitments to you to be ethical, to be transparent, and to be accessible, and to listen. And so I would suggest that while there's lots of work to be done, someone not agreeing with one's vote does not mean they don't care, and does not mean they're not listening.
This is the second warning. I will clear these chambers.
I will be a yes vote tonight, but I do hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Ackerson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to get a little clarification from what Councilman Hollander said. And Councilman Hollander, tell me if I'm wrong, but so the contract is based upon the city retention policy, correct or incorrect?
That's correct.
So, for those of us who are disappointed with the transparency aspect, one way around that is to extend the city retention policy as a whole for even longer, correct or incorrect?
Yes, sir, and that can be done with submitting something to the Department of Libraries and Archives. It's that simple.
And so at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is we can really, while not achieving both goals necessarily at this moment, we can achieve the goal of being able to hire more professional officers and hire the best officers possible to achieve the goals we're trying to achieve. And then through subsequent legislation, increase the accountability. Am I wrong?
Yes, sir. Legislation or action by the chief of police and the administration asking that the record detention policy be changed.
Thank you for the clarification on that, Councilman Hollander. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Purvis.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilman Eckerson, for asking those questions. It helped clear up a lot of questions that I had in regards to transparency. I think the public will be happy to know that there will be an extended time, if need be, to look into any problems that could have in the past been concealed or hidden. So I'm happy to say that. And I just want to agree with my colleague, Councilwoman George. Just because we may vote a certain way does not mean that we do not care. And I absolutely care. I think it's time that we need to move forward in providing better protection for our citizens. One of my primary goals as being a representative is to make sure that my constituents live a comfortable and safe life, and that they don't live in fear or danger of criminal activity. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be a yes vote, and I'm hoping in the future that we will have a more progressive police department, and as Councilman Eckerson said, we should be able to retain better officers for public safety here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And Councilwoman Chambers Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to clarify that while we do have the ability locally to influence the document retention policy, it does require approval by the state. Ultimately, it's a state regulation, and it is a process that involves several steps. And so I don't think it's accurate to say that it's something that we in local government have total control over. There are some unknowns in the process, and so I just wanted to clarify that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Green. Councilmember Shanklin.
Yes.
Councilmember Dorsey.
No.
Councilmember Arthur.
No.
Councilmember Purvis.
Present.
President James.
Yes.
Councilmember McCraney.
Yes.
Councilmember Armstrong.
No.
Councilmember Hollander.
Yes.
Councilmember Mulvihill.
Yes.
Councilmember Kramer.
Yes.
Councilmember Blackwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Fox.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
A strong yes.
Councilmember Triplett.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Councilmember Winkler.
Yes.
Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Piagentini.
Yes.
Councilmember Benson. Councilmember George.
Yes.
Councilmember Engel.
Yes.
Councilmember Peden.
Yes.
Councilmember Flood.
Yes.
Councilmember Holton Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Ackerson.
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 20 yes votes, 3 no votes, and 1 voting present.
Thank you. The resolution passes. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 45, please.
An ordinance establishing a development area pursuant to the provisions of KRS 65.7041 through 65.7083
You all are cowards.
to be known
Y'all
as
cowards. And I just want to let y'all know that
Metro
you all
TV.
are cowards.
Can you turn off that mic, please?
Officers, could you please?
An ordinance establishing a development area pursuant to the provisions of KRS 65.7041 through 65.7083 to be known as the Magazine Street Development Area, designating the Metro Development Authority, Inc. as an agency, adopting a development plan, approving, entering into a local participation agreement, authorizing the payment of the released amount pursuant to the terms and conditions of the local participation agreement, requiring the submission of a regular regular reports to the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government, and authorizing the execution and delivery of any other documents and the taking of any other action necessary to accomplish the purposes authorized by this ordinance. Read in full.
Motion, Winkler.
Motion by Councilman Winkler, second by Councilman Piagentini. The ordinance is before us. Is any discussion? Councilwoman Dorsey. Councilwoman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So tips have become a tool that we are seeing used much more frequently here in the city. We're being told post-COVID, it is a tool that we should expect to be seen with greater intensity being used. That being said, the reason why this is before old business is several things, for several reasons, excuse me, well.
Could you, Councilwoman Dorsey, we lost you. Could you start that again?
I'm sorry. The reason why this is before old business is to continue to give this body the opportunity to refine this process around tips. Additionally, this tip is very unique.
Councilwoman Dorsey, we lost you again.
It's within the, can you all hear me?
We can now.
It is within the WEOP boundaries, which has been an area that we have looked at regarding the current WEOP tip. This is within that boundary. So there were some questions, citizens that did come in as to how that would impact that. Councilman Arthur did take the time to address this during committee. The residents were consulted in this regard. There were provisions around making sure that affordable housing was still secured. And I will let him finish the discussion on this, but it was approved coming out of the committee. There was an additional question by Councilman Piagentini because we did put this through at the last minute after the police contract. So we had very little time for discussion on the floor. However, there has been extensive discussion behind the scenes. So if Councilman Piagentini wants to escalate what some of his clarifications of concerns were, that would be most appropriate as well. Thank you, Mr. President, and Councilman Arthur may have more to add to this.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Piagentini.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This might come up a little bit later on in a discussion on a different matter, but I believe strongly in process. I know I've brought that up many times in the past, from everything from Robert's rules to what's just good legislative process. And this came up with literally 2 minutes left in the committee hearing. There was no discussion. I made a motion to table. It failed. It then passed. And in the midst of that, I voted no because I really had no context and I had a few questions. I was able to meet with Councilman Arthur afterwards. He clarified a few things, spoke to a few other parties. And, it's a great project. I think it's